Welcome to Teen Talk, a podcast where from teens can ask questions and we can explore together the answers right here on this platform. This initiative is in loving memory of Henya Fetterman. I want to first thank my high school and seminary students who have helped me compile questions and answers in this episode. I would like to take a few minutes to begin with our first question of the week, which is connected to this week's Parsha, Parshas Mishpatim. How can this Parsha, which happened so long ago, affect me? So Parshas Mishpatim speaks about the laws that Hashem commanded us to keep, and our response as a nation, we will do and we will hear, Na'aseh v'nishma. The idea of doing and then hearing is something that we live with as Jews. So we do many mitzvahs without understanding why we're doing them or what effect they have. At the same time, there's a very important idea in this week's Parsha, which tells us that the hearing or listening is part of the deal. Being that we're in a relationship, yes, there are many things that we do because we know that it makes the other person happy at the same time. But Hashem is not happy with us just doing the mitzvahs like robots. He wants us to get to know Him, to try to understand Him, and this is possible through learning Chassidus. The next question is, how can I feel connected to Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka if I never got to meet her and we know so little about her? So I'm guessing this question came in, close to Chaf B'Shvat, when we're talking about the Rebbetzin and remembering her and trying to exemplify her. But look, I'm with you. I also never got to meet the Rebbetzin in person. I wish I did. But, the few stories that we have about her paint her as a regal, humble, sensitive, caring person who was so dedicated. And even though she was humble and wasn't out in the open as much and didn't even, use her name as, to get power, to get recognition, she went out of her way in so many cases to call someone, to find out how they are, to invite them over, to make sure that this person was taken care of. There's a story, of her stopping on the road, and I'm sure you've heard it, where she found out that there was a family that was thrown out of their apartment, and she just asked on the spot, how much is it, and made out a check right away for a lot of money in those days. So I find that when I hear firsthand from people sharing how Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka went out of her way to help others, she was so sensitive, she was so positive, it seems also, given that, she wasn't given such an easy life. And I want to go back to the question of how can I feel connected to Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka? The person who's asking clearly wants to feel connected to Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka and wants to get to know her a little bit more because there's so little about her. So, the story that comes to mind is where Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka was asked, and there's that famous song, where are your children? A young child asked her, and the Rebbetzins' response was, my children are in 770. And that just shows how much pride she took in us, even the ones that were born after her passing. And she, we were her children. And a way to, I want to use the word celebrate, but also a way to connect with her is really based on what the Rebbe said after the Rebbetzin passed, and the Rebbe was so broken, and he said to the Chassidim, he said to us, and also I've never met the Rebbe myself in person, but the Rebbe said to us, V'hachai yiten al libai, and v'hachai yiten al libai, that us exemplifying her and going in her ways and trying to learn from her in our own ways and doing things in her honor, that's where she's still living, so to speak, and she's having so much nachas from us, and she wants to connect with us. I can share personally that after my mother passed away, and then my father shortly afterwards, the words that the Rebbe had said, V'achai yiten al libai, really spoke to me. When I go in their ways and I try to make them proud and follow in their footsteps, that's really, really connecting with them. Obviously in a different way. So, going back to the question, how would first of all, there are many ways There are many more stories that have been published through the years. And now there are videos that we can watch of people sharing their personal experiences. I know I've been really touched, hearing someone in as a speaker talking about her relationship with the Rebbetzin. And the Rebbetzin was really a leader in her own way, even though she wasn't out there and she didn't use her name, for fame, and we don't know so much about her. She accomplished so much. She helped so many people. She stood behind the Rebbe and encouraged him. And there are so many qualities that we can learn from her. The next question is, how are we given free choice if Hashem knows everything? So this is a great question. I've heard it asked many, many times. And to be honest, I've heard a lot of different answers, but I still get stumped, every time I hear the question. But to be honest, like when I'm hearing the question in this way, like how are we given free choice if Hashem knows everything? So essentially what you're saying is that if Hashem knows everything, then I don't have free choice, which means I don't have a say. I don't have control over my own life, over what I choose to do. And it sounds like that's a negative thing. Like Hashem knowing everything holds me back from being in control of my life and making my own decisions. So I'm going to be like a Jew, answering with a question. My question is, so what if he knows? What if he knows everything? How does that make my life harder, less? And like we said, yes, if he knows everything though, then I don't have control over my life and I don't have free choice. Like I want my own free choice, right? I want to be able to make my own decisions and not feel like a puppet that's just, being led on a string. So the way that God created the world is in a way that he wants us to feel like we have free choice. And I know you don't like that answer. Again, I don't have the context of where it's coming from, but I've heard this question many times, and he wants us to feel like we have free choice. Like technically speaking, God could have created the world and we would have literally been like robots, like I'll do what Hashem wants, something like that. But he created the world in the way that we feel like we have control. And when we don't feel like we have control and we hear, well, Hashem knows everything and he's taking good care of you, sometimes it feels like, wait, hold on. Like I want to make that decision on my own. And why does he get to create a world where he knows what I'm going to do next? So my second question, so here I am, answering with a question, is why do I so badly want to have free choice? What would free choice give me? Would it give me a sense of power, a sense of control, a sense of like not feeling forced? And I understand that, and that's why this question is asked so many times. But if we like kind of look at it from a different angle, and I would wonder that if I was given free choice and God didn't know what was going to happen next, and yes, there is the answer that to Hashem, there's no time because Hashem created time. So to us, I'm thinking, okay, in the future, Hashem already knows what I'm going to do. But on his end, there's no future. There's no future, past, present. And that's really hard to grasp, like to try to even understand, because we live in this world with the concept of time. So to him, there's no time. But what's the idea that Hashem knows everything? Let's take a look at it from a different angle. So I heard something very interesting at a shir recently, that before something happens, that's when I have free choice. So I make the choice. Whether or not, Hashem knows everything, in that moment, I do have free choice. I can decide to, I'll give a very extreme example. I can decide to eat pig or I can decide to eat kosher. And in the moment, I do have free choice. But once it's done, okay, I gave a very extreme example. I'll go to another example. I have free choice. So I can decide I did something the other day with my car. I was backing into the driveway and I chose to go back past a garbage bin and it ripped off the mirror, which was a very expensive mistake. So in that moment, I did have a choice, because I could have stopped the car, gone out in the cold and moved the garbage bin so that it wouldn't ruin the mirror. So in the moment, I made a choice to keep backing up, even though I knew that it could have happened. But what I learned at this shir was that after the fact, after it's already done, after I've already made a choice and it happened, after the fact, that's when Hashgacha Pratis comes in. That means that after the fact, after it's done, that's when it kicks in that Hashem knows everything. Meaning, if I believe that Hashem is caring, and yes, there are times when I don't understand Him and I see things that happen in this world that make me, question Hashem's caring side because I'm seeing it, But all things considered, if I believe that Hashem is so caring, then that means that after something's been done, it was meant to be. That can kick in. So what I'm trying to say is that if I have free choice and everything's on me, and Hashem doesn't know it all, and Hashem doesn't, there's no idea of Hashgacha Pratis, because Hashgacha Pratis is that everything that happens is for a reason, and Hashem's taking care of us. Then anything that happens or any decision that I make, I'm to blame. If it goes well, I can, give myself credit. But if it goes wrong, that means that I'm to blame because I have free choice. I have full control over everything I do. So in a way, if we look at the question a little bit differently from a different angle, it's actually like a kindness that Hashem does for us in the sense that He has our back. He is taking such good care of us. And yes, I do want to feel like I have a sense of control because I'm human and that's the way Hashem created us. But at the same time, as Yidden, we have that gift knowing that even if something was done, even if I did make a mistake, it was meant to be. So the idea that Hashem, like I heard a saying, I don't know what's going to happen. So instead of saying, I don't know what's going to happen, and that, because also fear sets in, but I don't know what's going to happen, we can say, I count on Hashem for what's going to happen. So yes, we do have free choice, and Hashem created the world that way. And in the moment, we do have that sense of free choice. But once it happens, the outcome, the after effect, that is in Hashem's hands. And we're in good hands. He cares about us. He loves us. And so for me, for example, we'll go back to my mirror. Yes, that happened. And now I need to, save up money to fix the mirror. But instead of blaming myself and taking all the credit for what happened and, bashing myself, I have that gift of being able to say, you know what? Okay, this was meant to be. Somehow Hashem wanted the mirror to be broken instead of something else really bigger to be broken, like that idea of kapara. But all that being said, yes, I do have free choice, and yes, Hashem knows everything, and that means that He's taking really good care of me. Our last question for this week is, teenagers seem to be looked at as rebellious and impossible. Is there any positive way of looking at us? So I wouldn't say that all teenagers are rebellious and impossible, because it might sound like a stereotype, but at the same time, I know as a teenager myself, I did feel misrepresented and misunderstood many times. So the question is definitely, I'm sure coming from a place either where you were told this or you feel it. And I really want to address what you're asking. So I do want to go back to the idea that I never met the Rebbe in person. I never saw the Rebbe before Gimel Tammuz. But I was very touched by the Rebbe's view of teenagers. And I read this, an article on Chabad.org where, and I believe it was Simon Jacobson who was talking about how the Rebbe viewed teenagers. And most people can view that stage as rebellious. And rebellious would be a crime. So where teenagers, they speak rudely, or they are just, frustrated, or they're not, whatever people will say about teenagers. What was the Rebbe's view? So the Rebbe was so positive and had such a unique view about them. And what did the Rebbe say? That teenagers, rebelliousness is not a crime. Rebelliousness is a passion. It's a drive. And the Rebbe was saying that teenagers at that stage have so much that they want to do, that they want to change. They have so many questions. They also have indecision, growing into themselves. And it is a time when there's, like they may see like hypocrisy or contradictions, and that bothers them. And I want to say them, but I also, can speak for myself when I was a teenager, that there was, a lot storming inside of me, and there was a lot that was going on. And then the indecisions, I don't know where I'm going in life. I don't know if I'll ever get to where I want to go. And then, and then the questions, questioning because I care, because I want to believe, because I want to feel. So that's the passion and the drive that the Rebbe was tuned into, and that the Rebbe painted teenagers as very, very as a time when they're growing into themselves, and even times are changing. So there's so much change happening, and it's like, I want to make change at that age, and I want to be heard, and I want to be represented, and I have so many questions. And yes, there are things that are also uncomfortable inside of me, whether it's feelings or the way I'm acting on the outside. But all that being said, at that age, that's when I'm really growing into myself, and I'm discovering myself. And yes, I have questions, and it's such an important time, and to embrace that stage, and to view teenagers as the way the Rebbe saw them. And the Rebbe just said, it's a banner of which road you're going to take. You take a passion and a drive, and are you going to go down the road where you're helping people and giving to people and making a difference, or are you going to go down the other road? To submit questions for a future episode, you can send your questions to teentalkQandA@gmail.com. The email address is in the podcast description, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.